to respond to their individual needs, how to individualise the curriculum on their behalf, how to encourage them to continue on their learning journey. Of course, how to interpret that challenge and support that challenge becomes very different. I think if you look at all of the schools in Mumbai and indeed across India, they've risen to the online challenge with creativity and inventiveness and imagination in order to try and meet those challenges. However, I think we would all be able to say that the rate of progress is limited because the interpersonal contact is limited. I mean, we do face-to-face sessions, we do group sessions. I think we're very lucky as a set of schools in that by and large our parents have the technology and have the connectivity to allow us to be effective. It's not true of many schools. So we are blessed in that sense. But what we can see is that we have to limit the content delivery to an extent. We have to be more creative about keeping students engaged, and we have to work harder to maintain that really vital social and interpersonal contact as we go forward. Quite what the long term of this would be, I don't think any of us know. The most successful models of online learning have been working at the postgraduate level, where people have their own incentives to do it. I don't think, realistically, a primary school online can teach more than half of what a primary school would normally be teaching. So certainly the challenges that face us is not the short-term conversion to a virtual world. It's not even the medium-term progress as we go forward, but it would be if this was to become part of our scenario in the long term, that would be a challenge which we would really have to grapple with.
Okay, we're getting lots of questions, so I'll just first go to Zirak for his opening comment, and I'll make this webinar all about people who want to interact and some of the parents who perhaps are curious to get more answers. Zirak, a very basic question to you. How do you think children and students have adopted to this sudden change? And Zirak, it's a sudden change in terms of the mental approach, learning, and also the home atmosphere. All of us are, to be very frank, we are feeling scared. Anxiety levels are high. At home atmosphere is slightly more stressed out. And on top of that, the social skills, the basic work at home atmosphere is something which could be challenging for everyone here. So how do you think children and students are adapting to it?
Sure. Hi everyone. Sorry, as usual, technical challenges keep us delayed. But so to be very honest with you, in all of this, I would like to say that all our children have been the true heroes here. I just feel parents have to feel okay first in order for our kids to feel okay. So I think the challenges that we're seeing with this sudden onset change and adjustment, yes, we can put it down to instructional based technical aspects that are posing as challenges, connectivity online, the crazy life of balancing it out, right? I mean, I think the distress that we are mainly seeing that's coming from parents are being confined, right? Being confined to small spaces or places perhaps. When we even look at a different socio-economical bracket of society where there are sometimes joint family members or 10, 15 people living under one roof, we are seeing a lot of scale up of already existing mental health concerns in parents that are increasing right now. There are lots of distress calls for marital discord, infighting between daughter-in-laws and mother-in-laws, when there's already pre-existing stress at home with families, a strained teenage parent relationship that can, scale up definitely in situations like this, when everyone's together all the time. And of course, the other concerns are the screen time, the social media addiction, and, the whole battle of struggling for quality time, right? So the first thing we're trying to reach out and tell parents is that, you guys need to be okay first. If you can't say my kids are everything and the kids are the most important. The kids will be fine. And especially we're looking at, younger kids who are perhaps, 6, 8 or 10 in that age group. They are genuinely loving this time. If the home environment is actually stable. And if we learn ways of de-stressing, being more mindful, or looking at the silver lining in all of this. Like, I mean, I'm a dad of two young kids who are 6 and 8, and when I look back, I haven't spent this much of quality time with them ever. It's like beautiful. We're doing board games, we're doing silly things like playing hide and seek in the house. We are running around, we're just spending more time with our pet. We're having conversations, right? I mean, there's so much of, I feel, EQ development or intelligence quotients that you can hone at these times when you have these amazing conversations with them, sitting in the afternoon sometimes and just, watching a beautiful Disney movie with them. I mean, yes, there is the work-life balance. There are ways to, I think, be okay as adults and as parents in all this pandemic that there is happening globally. But I think that's what we'll get into, and that's what I'll share perhaps later as the few steps or strategies that we as adults, we as parents need to employ to make this whole aspect more appeasing for all of us, especially for our kids at home.
Zirak mentioned fight between daughter-in-law and mother-in-law. Zirak, that's not a new normal. That's an old normal. So even they are working at home right now, nothing on that front changes. Okay, I'm coming to you, Dr. Vakil. What is the preparedness of schools right now to start again? And do you think it would be difficult for schools to have a normal academic year this year, both in terms of covering the curriculum and also convincing the parents to send children back to school? Dr. Vakil.
Yeah, of course, everybody would be delighted to come to school physically again. People would be even more nostalgic for the old normal in a month or two. Um, and however, I think, from a safety concern, given that we have the option of continuing online learning, virtual learning, one has to individually take a call, keeping safety in mind. And I think each school will take its own call. Government permission will become the necessary but not the sufficient condition for opening physically. Yeah. And, it's probably premature to even speculate about when the government will permit it and when schools will decide to open physically. Of course, we are privileged in as much as, unlike many other schools across the country. So those considerations will be major. In terms of preparedness, honestly, I mean, getting back to a physical environment will be, much easier than it was to migrate to a virtual environment. I wouldn't be worried about that at all. Obviously, safety, hygiene, and other considerations will have to happen. Large events will probably get postponed. We certainly wouldn't be taking the kids out to movies and field trips. So yes, I mean, life will change a little bit, but that'll actually be the easier part, I think.
Okay, Zirak, this is a question which perhaps has come from several participants. As a parent, even I also want to know. We were maintaining a balance of screen time with our children when they were going to school. 2 hours, 2.5 hours, don't watch this additional movie. You've seen that Disney show, that is your quota done for the day. Now, A, I cannot stop them. B, online education is only increasing the screen time. How does one check on that, Zirak? I don't want to be like a strict parent here, but I want to be realistic in terms of maintaining a balance.
Of course. So this is, you're right, it's a concern that's come from many parents. You see, with online education, there is no option but to use technology and your Zoom calls, online classes. I mean, lots is becoming virtual. I mean, we have piano classes that are happening online, music classes, gym classes, creative art classes, even, some of our, we run a special school for kids with, learning difficulties and autism, etc. So there are even therapy sessions happening online. So those are the great, I think, advantages that allow continuity, right, for these kids with us as professionals and otherwise. Having said that, again, it is very, very important for all of us as parents and with our kids to create a robust schedule. If you're not going to create that schedule and that timetable, whether it's even factoring in the online classes, like let school hours be school hours. I have parents who are allowing their kids to, continue with their online work whenever they want. So sometimes they're doing it for 2 hours in the afternoon, sometimes for 3 hours in the evening time. That's not going to work, because that's when teenagers can misuse. I mean, who's going to check on a kid or a teenager 24/7? I mean, they may be there with their screen in front of them, but they may be chatting or on social media or gaming with their other kids. So being vigilant, being clear on creating that robust timetable and schedule for them, and then involving them, right? I mean, at home, there is so much to do. I mean, why aren't parents involving them for day-to-day chores? I mean, we don't have house help right now. We want our kids to pitch in, because I just believe all these smaller things are also learning, right? Why not let them help a bit in the kitchen? Why not involving them in a bit with cooking? Let them, lay the table, for example, and be involved. And if there is that structure where there is time for even recreation, right? So I know many families who are actually fixing up a time in the evening for their movies. They're fixing up a time for their board games together. And I think it can help all of us, because even, like I said, we are working as well as parents. And I think lots of parents are working from home, and they're all struggling with this. And the main struggle is when the whole timetable and the routine and the schedule is left unstructured. So I know many parents and kids are sleeping at 1 or 2 in the morning, and they're unable to get up the next morning. Some kids are getting up by afternoon, and all that will just create more frustration, irritation, and unable to then cope with maintaining boundaries.
Right. Ms. Tina, this question is perhaps coming your way, and I'm going to just pick it up from where Zirak left in terms of screen time, and add on also one more question. This is coming from some parents where their children are going to senior schools. What, to your mind, will happen to competitive exams? Will it be a lost year for, if not IB boards, other boards? It's a complex issue, but would you like to throw more light as your understanding about senior school students? You may have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
So I just want to add one or two points to what Zirak was saying about screen time. So agreed, no, parents also had brought up initially that screen time is too much, but we tried to do a balancing act. So in the sense, we are using the flipped classroom methodology. We are also trying to have virtual, I mean, in the sense of interactive games between. So like we had our new grade 11 join in. So we had icebreakers through games. So agreed, the screen is there, which they are a part of, but it is not it's not only instructional matter that is being shared. So there are different ways in which we can teach them online. But as has been shared, it's not a long-term plan. We are actually taking it as it comes, step by step, to make sure that the teaching learning keeps going. Coming back to your other question about how senior students and the competitive exams, I would think it's going to probably mean a gap year. So very many of our students, when they finish grade 12 and they want to still take some time to plan their future course, to plan what they want to do with their lives, they do, in fact, it's becoming quite popular to take a gap year. And I'm talking about the international school students. I am not sure whether this holds good in in the Indian boards as well. But given the scenario, I think a gap year is what's going to happen for competitive exams as well. And taking a very, very broad view, I'm no authority on that, but in the whole course of one's life, 1 year, if we have to, write off, then we just have to do it. And in other way, and in the time that they lose this 1 year, there are other online skills, whether they are courses, online courses that they could engage in to keep the learning going. So it's not not blocking out a year of not having done anything. So I think there can be something positive that comes out of that. But given the situation, I am not very sure how competitive exams will happen. We are hearing from universities that they are now probably going to call in students only in 2021. So we are, there are so many things that are uncertain and floating around. So I would just say probably it's going to be a gap year.
It may sound hard, but that is the new normal. And as some parents over there, perhaps we don't want to send a scary message across, but we are simply trying to understand how things would move. Dr. Fisher, this question is coming your way, and I think it's an extension of what Ms. Sinha mentioned. It may be a gap year for senior students, but could it be a lost year for the current students of BD Somani and for other schools?
A lost year, certainly not. No, it'll be a year full of learning. It'll just be learning in a different form and a different environment. And the challenge to us as schools will be to make sure that that learning is relevant and engaging and all of the other things that I've already mentioned. So I don't see it as a lost year. For the senior students, I think they will all end up going to universities. The challenge to the universities will be how, and we will probably see an increase in the use of MOOCs and other ways, but with them being assessed by the universities. Our current just finished grade 12s are all doing, as part of a pre-university course, they're all doing a MOOC. They're doing a preparation course for universities going forward, where they're looking at, I don't know, health and study habits and intercultural awareness and those sorts of things. So I don't see it as a lost year, but I do see it as a year where we have to really reflect and look at what is valuable in our education and life and fight to retain that value, but also look at what is unnecessary and be prepared to jettison it. And that's going to be a difficult task. And that's going to be a task which is going to need to involve governments, universities, all of the stakeholders, parents, everybody. But it's probably not a bad thing. If we look at the way this lockdown has worked, we can all see some of the positives of us maintaining a smaller family-based footprint in the world, and how to maintain the positives which have come out of this enforced lockdown is going to be one of the challenges that we face going forward.
So Dr. Fisher, another follow-up question, interesting one. What happens to PE, physical education, physical teaching, sports, drama, all of the group activities, Dr. Fisher?
Well, we've managed to maintain them. We're still doing capoeira and we're doing PE and we're doing yoga and we're doing all of those things. So our PE teachers are, in fact, in many ways more challenged than the rest of our teachers, because there's a complete lack of familiarity, making sure everybody's got the band or a ball or something to use as a focus for the lesson. Drama continues, but of course is much more difficult because it comes down to monologues and prepared speech and a lot of those sorts of things. What I'm saying is that we have managed up to now. We can manage again going forward. Of course, being imaginative and creative becomes a requirement, not a sort of wish. But it's going on forward. And here I see that there will be issues around applied learning, manipulative learning, technological learning, design thinking, some of those areas, as well as the areas that you've mentioned. And I can see that there may be things that we have to do in terms of trying to augment people's social development and awareness of different types of relationships and adults. And I think the other last big challenge we're going to face is, how do we maintain a sense of humour and a sense of fun and a sense of making this exciting and interesting and all of those things? Because the danger is that we adults walk around with this big sort of cloud over our heads. What's going to happen? How are we going to cope? What are we going to plan for? All of these sorts of things. We have to remember that we all have not only the right, we have the need to laugh, to spend a bit of time enjoying ourselves. And Disney may provide some of that, but won't provide all of that.
Stay positive, keep positive. I guess that's the approach all of us should have. Dr. Vakil, next question. I'm not picking this question from the chat, but personally, I want to understand this question. What happens in a situation where the government restrictions are lifted, yet the number of mandatory students do not come to a school? What will the school do in that case where parents or guardians are not convinced enough to send their children to the school? So there are no government restrictions, schools are open, yet the mandatory students are not there. So what do you think schools will do and should do?
No, I mean, that's obviously the reason why, each school has to take its own call and say, look, it is now safe to have physical classes, and safe not just for the children. I mean, we all know that sort of, the kids are relatively less affected by COVID. It's actually really safety for teachers and for people like us, even more so than the kids. So it's for everyone really. It's not just for parents worried about their kids. Now, so you would have to be pretty sure that 90% of your parents are going to send their kids when you decide to move to physical classes. Absolutely. And then classes will sort of begin, and then the other 10% can really take their own individual call. We can send homework home, but obviously at that point we can't be running a two-track system, right? So that's how I suspect it would be for most schools.
Okay. We got 152 participants. So the response has been overwhelming. I'm talking about this platform. This is going live on other platforms also. We clearly have a much bigger live count. So I'm really grateful to all of you that you've taken time out and we're having this chat. So a couple of last follow-up questions. Ms. Sinha, when the schools will open, what would be the hygiene practices schools are likely to follow? Is there a thought on social distancing? Will all schools open together? And is there a current forum where principals of other boards are also acting and reacting? Is there something which has been thought through?
So we are quite actively, on principal chat groups, and each of us keeps sharing what our views are. But as far as talking about our school, we are a small school. In the sense, our numbers are, the teacher-student ratio is really small, and some amount of social distancing we can do. But it's not going to be practical because after all, you've got a laboratory where you can't really distance. So lab work happens, or if children are in a classroom, or if they're in an activity, it will not be practical to keep distancing them. So I would think that when schools do reopen, it will have to be when we are absolutely sure that it is safe. And as far as the hygiene bit of it, whatever it takes, whatever is required by way of mandatory measures to be taken, we will do whatever is required. But I'm not sure about social distancing in a school, in a classroom setup, where, how much are we going to keep telling children that don't congregate, don't get together, don't wait in a queue in the cafeteria. There are so many things which we will not be able to keep a track of. So I think we will be able to reopen only when we are safe. And just to add on to what Cyrus said, I think it will have to be a mutual call that we will take along with the parents. So we have to work in partnership with them. So it would be a mutual decision that yes, this is a time which is safe for us to now reopen. Because it's not only the children, it's also the teachers, the families they come from. So we have to look at different parameters before we take that decision.
Okay.
I would
Zirak?
add, if I could briefly
Yes.
into that.
Yes, Dr. Fisher, please go ahead.
Schools in India, I mean, our school has lovely facilities, but it has 1,000 students in half a building. And that's true over nearly all schools in India and certainly in Mumbai. So the social distancing becomes a challenge which I think is physically not meetable for the full cohort of students. And maybe the government is going to have to look at staggered starts with only particular grades returning to school such that we can accommodate them and manage them within our facilities.
Okay. Zirak, two questions. One very specific question from a parent. I'm glad this question has come up. While we're talking about Zirak online teaching, what about children with special needs? What should be done to ensure that they do not lose on learning? Zirak?
Yes. So like I said before, that I think it's a challenge for all of us, especially technology, right? I mean, there are lots of innovative ways. Like I know for a fact, some of our therapists, now when I talk about therapies, therapeutic intervention for special needs children, no matter what their learning disabilities or needs are, or even if they are or might be on a spectrum for autism, they need consistent therapies because therapies is part of the learning profile and the curriculum that is needed for them. And whether it is occupational therapy, right, which has a whole kind of series of exercises from fine motor skills to gross motor skills to therapies which help with hand-eye coordination, processing speed, perception, all of this which amalgamates occupational therapy and sense integration therapy can be done online. I know lots of occupational therapists who are doing that, and it is really, really engaging, and it is great because in fact a lot of occupation therapy and sensory integration therapy need home programs. So simple things and techniques and activities through play can very well be done for a good 45 minutes to an hour plus at home. Second is speech and language therapy, which again formulates a big chunk of therapeutic interventions for these kids. These two, along with games and online sessions, are happening and can be done virtually as well through technology and online. Now, the only setback, I guess, for the teaching implementation is what we call as a multi-sensorial approach, right? You can't use those kind of techniques and the tactile techniques or the experiential techniques online, right? I mean, that you need the human touch for that. You need song, you need dance, you need physical activity and fun and all of that, which you can only get when you're in front of a special educator and in that class. So yes, those are the setbacks, those are the challenges. Also with special needs do come a lot of other behavioral and conduct issues, etc. But like I said, we are trying to reach out as much as possible, whether it's online counseling sessions for behavioral modification that parents may need, or a lot of kids with attention deficit hyperactive disorder who need their medication. I know that the government has passed a law now that we can even give our prescriptions online, because before the chemists were not, taking on these kind of prescriptions, but now that allowance has also been given so that at least treatments that are pharmacotherapy based can also be streamlined and maintained at all times. So we are doing all these things to ensure that even kids who do have different learning needs are being maintained like this as much as we can in different innovative ways.
Okay, Mr. I'm going to pick up a question from the chat that is coming from Bijal Parik. And the question is, should we keep pushing our children to meet the deadlines or should we take it easy? And will schools be considerate if children do not do their homework? It's a nice situation to be in, but will you be considerate?
See, the idea is to put a schedule to it and to follow it. The whole idea is to make it as normal as possible. Agreed, the situation is unprecedented. Not any of us were prepared for it. But now that we are in it, we need to make sure that the children are, kind of adhering to something as normal as a routine where they start their classes at 8 o'clock. So even when they, on a regular school day, they would go home and set aside some amount of time for homework. Well, that has to be maintained, because only then will there be some sense of normalcy or some sense of sanity. Otherwise, we are trying to do and relaxing, being considerate. Of course, we are understanding what the situation is, but it's only because we are trying to normalize it that we are trying to push children, and they can do it, and they have done it all the while. So there is no reason why they should not be able to do it now, provided they stick to a routine. So in fact, we did reach out to parents also, saying that as far as possible, please keep to routines. And parents are pretty thankful that that they can do their own thing while their children are in class. So I think we need to keep to these deadlines.
Okay. I think a follow-up to our webinar is coming now, because this is a follow-up question of the webinar. And Dr. Vakil, I'll encourage you to jump in with this one. If indeed this is going to be a gap year for senior students, what should senior students focus on when they apply for global universities? Do they need to add more skills? What can they do best of this time at home? Dr. Vakil.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, and this may be our first point of disagreement. We were having too much of a consensus, I thought, here. And a little disagreement is healthy. I don't think this is going to be a gap year
That
for
keeps
most.
me in business, sir. That keeps me in business as an anchor if there's disagreement in the panel.
Yes. So I don't think anybody wants gap years, parents and students least of all. So nor do overseas universities want gap years. It creates a serious gap in their income streams. So it is unlikely to happen. And I think it would reassure a lot of students and parents if we really didn't talk so much in terms of gap years as though it was inevitable. It might, of course, mean that the first term has to be done from home, and distance learning we know works. So so they shouldn't be terribly nervous about that. Now, that having been said, if for some reason there has to be a gap year, I think the reason is relatively obvious. I mean, schools all over the world are wonderful at teaching cognitive skills. Yeah, they're not so good at other kinds of life skills. Yeah, schools also teach a fairly standardized curriculum, though again the international schools are slightly better and international boards are slightly better. So there are areas where students may not have had much experience, but where they would really benefit in college, such as, for instance, coding, right? So take up a coding course and learn it. Yeah, take up something about art history, which you're always fascinated with, and now is your chance to do a Yale course in art history. So I mean, you can really individuate your learning and cater to your own particular needs, which formal schooling, standardized schooling, conventional schooling can never do.
Dr. Fisher, it's always good to get a complete 360-degree view. I want to get you in on this, what Ms. Sinha just prompted in terms of a gap year. We don't want to create any panic. Right now, the situation is fluid, so I respect what comments are coming. But what is your personal thought?
I think, like all of these things, that's terminology which is going to apply, but not describe accurately what people are going to do. A gap year used to be where you went off and did adventurous and creative and social and beneficial to other service learning, those sorts of things. many, if not most of those opportunities are going to be severely limited like everything else. So I think both of the prior speakers are, both Cyrus and Radhika are correct in that it's going to be a different year. And whether we call it a gap year or not, it's going to be different and it's going to have its challenges. I think those students who wish to go straight on to university, be that within India or not, are going to certainly have the opportunity to do so, even if that is online. Of course, they're going to lose a lot of those hugely valuable lessons that we all learned when we first went off to university. But those lessons can be learned later, and we very much hope not too much later. So I think it's going to fall to the students and to their parents and to the advisors and indeed to the universities to be creative and thoughtful about how they do this. My daughter is about to start her master's degree and it was going to be at a UK university. Well, we're in conversation with the UK university and an Australian university because my daughter happens to be physically in Australia. And it may be that she does a UK university degree with the help of an Australian university. We just have to look at how people are going to creatively try and solve these problems such the cost that is paid by the students is kept to a minimum.
Okay, I'm going to get just one last question going before we get closing comments going. I mean, we've shamelessly extended our timing by 15 minutes, but the response has been so overwhelming that I'm taking the liberty of extending the time here. Zirak, this is more like a question which is addressed with an habit. Using screen or screen time is an habit. How does one ensure that once the lockdown ends, which we all are hoping and praying, lockdown ends quickly, how can one really change the screen time habit? What should you tell children right now? What can parents start sharing with their child?
To be honest, Nikunj, I think that's going to happen as an automatic response. I mean, just imagine, have you ever thought, or has any of us thought, as when the day of gets announced as to the day of lockdown ending, what are we all going to do? I mean, that's the question we are all asking ourselves, and there are so many thoughts.
Let me first hear it from you, because I'm going to ask this from everyone.
So, like I said, to be honest with you, I may be the odd one out, but I'm actually enjoying this lockdown. I'm actually enjoying quality time spent at home with my kids, and I'm doing things that I've never done before in a while. So, like I said, those are the silver linings, right? But I really genuinely feel that the frustrations of kids primarily are being constrained at home, not being outdoors with friends. So I think what's lacking in them and what they're missing out on are their friends. I mean, of course, there are Zoom play dates, as they're calling them, but they're not the same like meeting friends and, cracking jokes and having fun outdoors. Some are really missing outdoor sports and their games of tennis or just running on open grass, etc. So I don't, and I think it's out of this sheer force of confinement and lockdown is where the screen time has gone out of control. So to be honest, like I started off saying, our kids are really and truly have been our champions through all of this. And of course, our teachers, I want to put in a word here as to the tremendous amount of work our teachers are doing, because we've really kind of, we need to applaud the fact that they are mothers too. They are caregivers to their own kids back home, and they are balancing crazy schedules, right? I mean, I know that there are a lot of meltdowns happening as well there, but they're doing a fabulous job in the given current situation. And even knowing that some of them are technologically not very savvy, etc. And there's connectivity and internet issues and all of that. So to come back to your question, I think kids are going to actually move away from screen time as an automatic process when they get back to normal life and their school life and their activities and their scheduled classes. So I don't think parents need to worry about that at all.
Ms. Sinha, closing comments. We've got 150 people who are watching this on this forum. We've got a live audience on Facebook, Twitter. Part of the show will be carried even on ET Now a little later. What would be your message to your students, to the parents, the worried lot, and few happy lot?
I would just say that we have to take each step as it comes and just remain positive. I know it's easy to say, but we are doing it. We are actually living it every day. So, that just, I'd like to share, like at all schools, the principal sets the tone for the year that is to come. So, at the opening assembly or at the opening staff meeting, one says something to set the tone. So in July 2019, this is what I said. I set the tone, or I, kind of gave out the mantra saying that if people ask us, what do you do? We say, whatever it takes. Little did I know that that is going to ring so true. And in fact, it is commendable. Today, our students, our teachers, our parents, all of us are doing whatever it takes to tide over this difficult time. And I think that is the positivity with which we have to keep going. It is here, it is a situation, and so we might as well deal with it in the most possible positive manner. It's easier said than done, but I think if we all set our heart and our mind to do it, I think we will be able to tide over.
Dr. Fisher, closing comments from you. What is that one thing you've done differently in the lockdown personally? And what is that one thing you would tell your students and the parents to do differently in this lockdown?
What have I done differently? I've read more. I've caught up with friends that I've been intending to catch up with for years and never have, albeit at a distance. What would I do differently? I think I wouldn't do anything differently. I would ask people though, like we all ask our students and our parents, is that through any rich experience, we end up coming out of that experience wiser, more reflective, and better armed to go forward in life. What we are learning now so that we can make sure that we don't lose those lessons going into the future. The worst possible thing we can do as a response to this virus would be not to learn what the lessons it's trying to teach the world. I know it's odd that a virus might be teaching us something, but I believe that's the case. And so to take the positives out of this and make sure that we continue with those, even though we are reverting back to a new normal.
Okay, Dr. Vakil, as a principal, as an educationist, as a parent, what would be your message, your advice to your students and to the parents be?
Yeah, it's a very simple message to parents. Yeah, parents, you have enough to worry about in all the flux and the economic carnage that is happening. So stop worrying about your kids. Kids are much more resilient than you think, and kids will learn. It is in the nature of kids to learn. They may not learn the way they used to learn, but they will learn a lot. Everybody used to talk about experiential education in theory. Now it's an opportunity for everybody to experience it and to do it in practice. Worry about other things. Don't worry about your kids. Don't worry about their schooling.
Okay. Zirak, you were the odd one out. You said you're enjoying your time. You've told us what people should do. So I'm going to close this with one question. What is one thing one should not do right now?
So I think what is important to not do at times like this is obsessively being stuck on social media and the news and, keep imbibing all the negative things. I mean, if you remember years back when we had our bomb blasts and terrorist attacks in our city, it happened to all of us, right? I mean, it was a similar lockdown situation and we spent hours on the TV watching, the news, and it just creates and generates more panic and anxiety. So definitely we're telling everyone at home to not go on talking, conversing and watching all this negative news all the time. Yes, understand what's happening.
I thought you and me were friends. Are you saying don't watch TV?
Watch the news, the important, relevant things that we need to even tell our kids, right? It's important. I think all our kids should be kept abreast with what's happening around the world, what's happening with the virus, giving them the right kind of information, but at limited times. I'm saying this because I know our families, especially the elders, are sitting across the TV and watching it sometimes for hours together. And then they're getting more anxiety attacks and negative thoughts and depressive feelings, etc. So that is important. And I parents need to, like, Dr. Fisher said, add humor. It's up to us. It's our duty as parents to maintain a healthy, normal, happy environment at home. I mean, all of us are going through our own distressful times. Understanding what the warning signs are. If you are feeling low, depressed, irritable, you have changes in your eating patterns or sleeping patterns, or feeling tired and fatigued all the time, unable to function, unable to focus and concentrate, or continuous ruminating, obsessing thoughts about this, or severe anxiety about unemployment or financial stability, etc., and actual panic attacks like breathlessness or dizziness and palpitations, please reach out. You have to understand, I mean, research globally is telling us that mental health is going to be on a huge rise even in the coming years. It is absolutely okay to not feel okay, but it is not okay to not reach out. And there are so many people out there like us, from counselors to psychiatrists to mental health professionals, who are offering all sorts of things. We've started a free helpline for anyone, which is 24/7. We are doing online counseling and sessions. Reach out. Sometimes when you reach out to a professional who's not giving you just advice, but listening and understanding to you in an unbiased and a non-judgmental way, it really eases things off. And my last message is focus on gratitude. There's so many things that we take in life for granted. I think this has taught us all to genuinely feel grateful and have gratitude for the smallest of things in life that we have and we possess. And we need to encourage our kids to also do this and propagate it on a daily basis. I mean, research has also shown that simple gratitude aspects and thoughts and conversations help in reducing toxic emotions. It helps in reducing frustration and depressive thoughts, and it effectively increases empathy and happiness levels. So that's my last message that I leave out for you as parents.
And that is what somebody is expressing on the panel also, also in chats also. A sincere gratitude is coming for all the panelists, for all the teachers. I salute our education system personally as a parent, because these are tough times, interesting times, like Dr. Fisher said, different times. But the fact that all of us have come together, we can make magic. Stay home, stay safe, but stay positive. I think that's the message which I would like to convey on behalf of everyone from this panel. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to convene once again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Geoffrey. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.